I'd like to congratulate you on not succumbing to that great law of thermodynamics in the sky. Safe to say, I too am also not dead. Gentlemen, welcome back to the shop. Finally, some good news. I got some parts to append to the Lungbuster over 9000. I've appended a Jill for those emergency shit. You know what I'm talking about, ladies. Unfortunately, I couldn't work on this last night on account of, I stayed up late, got on the computer and found some good news. Here's the curve, of course, scary. Hard work never killed anybody, but stress surely has. No one understands the exponential function. I'm going to show you the good news, and I have to preamble this. I am not a conspiracy theory type. If an argument doesn't stand up to the barest whiff of scrutiny, then it ain't even worth talking about. And the other thing is, most conspiracy theorists or theories have a germ, well, more than a germ, of narcissism. The I'm smarter than you, so I know what's really going on, and the rest of you are just sheep. I apologize for the break in the chronological order. I didn't explain this. Through the magic of editing, we find ourselves back now in the future. I didn't explain this very well. I think it was go. Yeah, that German fella said, I'm sorry, friend. I didn't have time to make this letter shorter. I want to concisify this, and I want it to be crystal clear. So here's the total cases. We got the hockey stick. It looks like a exponential growth there. It's actually not. It's a linear growth, and you can make this even scarier by having this out to February 2019, and then this curve ends up looking like that. Even scarier, right? But this is a linear progression. They're just adding the amount of diagnosed cases. If you have a population and you don't know, it hasn't been tested, you don't know what's out there. Once you start testing, the more you test, the more you are going to find. Now, you will never see this graph conjoined with the number of tests. And if we look at the number of tests, it exactly matches this line, which is an absolutely great thing. It means we are doing things right. So here we have the US historical data from the COVID tracking project, and we have the total amounts of tests. Now, as I said, the more you go looking for something, the more you're going to find it. And if we take a look at the number of positives versus the total number, it's running right around 10%, between 11, something like here, we'll start at 10,000 because that's easy there, 11%, 11, not 18%. And as we progress up, if you work through here, the positive to total number of test results is running right around 15%, which means that we are not doubling. The total population is represented by the people who are showing symptoms who actually get tested, because we don't have enough test kits to actually test the whole population. And also, the test doesn't show you if you've already had it, if you have the antibodies. It only shows you if they take a swab, and to my knowledge, what they do is they take the RNA out of the COVID and they add a fluorescing marker to it, and then they turn it into DNA and they cook it up so that the DNA replicates. And after so many cycles, they check to see what the intensity of fluorescence is, the light intensity of that fluorescence, and if it's past a certain zone, you are positive. If it's below a certain zone, you are negative. The testing procedure seems a little bit, if you have a pandemic, which is staying steady, if you look at the percent of people who get tested who are actually infected with the COVID, you will see that the amount of people who test positive for it, regardless of the amount of people tested, is always between 10 and 15%. flat. We talk about flattening the curve. If this was a contagious pandemic, you would see, you'd start off with 1% of the population, 2%, 4%, 8%, 16, 32, 64. And then we are in all kinds of trouble. But it's very, very straight line between 10 and 15% positive test results of the total test results, which is a subset of the entire population, a subset of people showing flu-like symptoms. This is fantastic news. These numbers are for discussion, okay? Acute respiratory diseases in Glasgow, a study done from 2005 to 2013, normally 5 or 7 to 15% of viruses are, and if we go back to this, what are we finding? Curious, very curious. Oh, I looked up the World Health Organization, what they were saying, and I kind of using the old Soviet, not to read the news, but to read between the news. That is what they are not saying. So what they are not saying, well, this is what they are saying even is interesting. The serial interval for the virus is estimated between 5 and 6 days, while for the influenza virus, the serial interval is 3 days. This means that the influenza can spread faster. And that's the World Health Organization. Okay, here's a contrarian. Nice, good Greek name there. Reportedly, and I don't really subscribe to argument by authority. That is, I'm the expert, so I know what I'm doing. But this guy is very well spoken. Professor of courtesy at Stanford. So he works in this department, and he gets handed off every once in a while to a couple other departments. Ain't no joke. Anyway, he's got a little bit of a different take on it. Reported case fatality rates, like the official 3.4% rate from the World Health Organization, cause horror and are meaningless. If we assume the case fatality among infected, blah, 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 this would translate to about 10,000 deaths. Oh, okay. He's saying the rate is more likely 0.3%, which would be about 10,000 deaths. Now, to put that in perspective, in the 17-18 flu season, meaning flu-like symptoms, so flu-like illness, because there's a lot of viruses that cause flu-like illnesses, 80,000 people died from the flu. This is from the CDC, sorry. So these are mortality rates from the Italian government. Italy has apparently been hit super hard. One salient little indicator here is you can see the seasonal flu. This would be a red line here, this top one, and this is people over 65, I believe. Yeah, over 65. You can see at the end of March, the additional supplementary death rates have not gone over the mean. As a corollary to that, the Euromomo, which is the European monitoring of excess mortality for public health action, we can see all the flu seasons here through all of Europe up to this flu season, and we're actually seeing a decline in the mortality rate. And if we look at Italy, slight rise. Just an interesting point. These are all publicly available data. This is from a release from the French government. Salient point here, distribution of age for the deceased persons. Most of them well over 80. We can see the old boom bust echo, boomer belly here moving through. Interestingly here's a report in Italian, but I don't speak Italian, but I do a passable bastardized French, and being a Latin language, I think we can figure it out. 2003 deceased patients in Italy. Most of them are from Lombardy, I believe. Some of them from over here. Worst pollution, worst air pollution in Europe. Wuhan, also in China, terrible air pollution. Terrible. People were, in China, they were protesting in the streets in the summer that the pollution was so terrible. Now, this is very salient here. You can see the median age of the deaths way up here. The median age of diagnosed way down here. That's telling us that younger people succumb to it quite a bit less. By age and sex, deceased by age and sex. Donna, I would say, is female. That sounds like man. And total, that's got to be total. So, as we see, ladies, we know that they last longer because they're tough as old boots. They got they got to last long enough so their 50-year-old son can get out of the house and get married and start a family of his own. You'd see that most of the fatalities here, pretty old, pretty old. You know, I hate to break it to you, but we're all gonna die. May you not outlive your joints. Now, this is extremely salient. This is the pedagogy. Okay, 3% of patients, 0.8%, had 0 other problems. 89 patients, that's 25% of patients who died, had 1 extra problem. 25 had 2 extra problems. And 50% had 3 other problems. So this goes to show that in these numbers of deceased, if you had no other problems, no complications, chances are you were going to make it through. You look at these, and these are not little problems. These are not hangnails. They're cardiac. There's a heart fibrillation, diabetes, dementia. There's a lot, like, those are some pretty serious illnesses. Symptoms, diarrhea. You gotta watch out for that one. Now, this is a fantastic site from the University of Oregon. Shows a heat map of influenza-like illnesses, as well as the novel atypical on a different screen. But the trends, as you can clearly see by the blue, the 7-day trend in illness is decreasing. And it's decreasing very heavily throughout the United States. If we look at the typical range here of expected influenza-like sicknesses, illnesses, we see that our mediation is working. I think the best news of all, unless you're a media outlet, is this one. It's a study out of Japan about Wuhan, China, and it has yet to be published. And there is a disclaimer. This article has not been, not that that's ever stopped any media outlet from running with it. It's not been peer reviewed yet. It's in the process of being peer reviewed. That's why it's accessible. So it's not a good guide to clinical practice. The results, this part, we also found that the most recent crude infection fatality ratio, IFR, and time delay adjusted IFR is estimated to be 0.04%, which is fuck all in a big ship, which is several orders they don't say that in the report. They oughta. In amongst the vitriol and bot comments, hopefully we can engender some discussion on some cherry-picked contrarian views. And don't mistake discussion for justification. Listen, we gotta listen to the bobbleheads. They know better. They're far more studied than I am. I would appreciate your considered comments, because the thing is about contrarian views. They're unpopular until they ain't. I'm just asking because I don't know. So thanks for watching. Keep your dick in a vice.